Hey, everybody, welcome back, and we're on video numero tres of the offensive pre-spring inventory. Today, we are talking about the wide receivers. We hit QBs. We hit running backs. And, guys, the biggest story to me of last year, you took a group that was legitimately one of the worst in the entire country in 2021, and that's Florida State's receivers room. You infused it with a hell of a lot of transfer portal talent, and my goodness, it was an actual, honest-to-goodness strength of the team. The Ron Dugan's donk, redemption tour is riding through. We're recruiting at a high level. They're playing at a high level, and we brought pretty much everybody back with some key additions that are going to be very interesting. I feel good about Florida State's wide receivers. I felt really good about them last year. I feel even better about them this year. Kevin and Brendan are here with me, my boys, my compadres. Brendan, what do you think about Florida State's wide receivers coming up in 2023, my friend?
First off, in honor of Coach AB, who is not able to be here with us for this episode, Pokey Wilson fan club. Goodbye, Pokey. We will see you around in the NFL, I believe. Have a happy
great year.
trails.
He had a great big play year, and I think that's a good point. So we'll talk about all the retention and the addition, but first, Brendan said, we wanted to give the hat tip to Pokey for Adam.
I didn't want to get an angry text message from AB, and I knew that would
his
come.
text messages are so toxic. It's ridiculous. So Ontario Wilson departing for the next level. Who really, man, you think about some of that LSU game comes to mind. He really covered himself in glory this year. Malik McLean transfers out to Penn State. I think a lot of that was very similar to the Trayshawn Ward situation. It's a super talented room, and I don't think there were enough balls to go around for everybody. Any other departures that I'm missing of note? In the wide receiver room, I don't think so.
I think that was it. I'm looking over what they currently have. I think those are the two of note, at least. I don't think they missed anyone else of significance.
What really caught your eye about the receiver play last year, Brennan? What really stood out to you?
It was a lot better, for one, right?
It helps, yeah.
It kind of sucked in 2021. Well, never mind. I just thought of someone else. Anyways, so 2021, it wasn't great. And injuries, just lack of development, and a lot of reasons why it didn't work out well for FSU in 2021. So what did FSU do in that offseason? They were like, be back in my Tinder days, just swiping right all over the place. Take as many shots as you possibly can.
Quantity, baby.
Yes, they took 4 wide receiver transfers, easy for me to say, and 2 of them were jackpots right off the bat. Johnny Wilson, excellent. I'll let Kev talk about him in a little bit because I know he was leading that hype train in the offseason. But then Mycah Pittman from Oregon was really solid, helped out the punt return game as well.
Huge.
Spann had some moments here and there, but he was a long-term project anyways because of skill, speed, but a converted quarterback. So you weren't expecting a ton from him this year. I honestly think you got more from him in some key moments, like against LSU, than you were expecting. So playing with house money there. Then Winston Wright was the other one. And he got hurt, unfortunately, in the spring in a car accident, not his fault. As a passenger, and he was supposed to be the best of the bunch, and you were able to have the production to become a competent, if not good, if not very good, wide receiving core at the ACC level without your best transfer. So between those guys and then some of the promising younger pieces that you had show up at times last year, it was a really good season for the wide receivers, and I think there's a lot of optimism that we're going to talk about here in this episode of it could get even better with some of the high upside types that they've added.
Kevin, your thoughts about what we saw from the receiver play last year? We're spread guys. We're air raid guys at heart, man. And we needed Florida State to get the receivers dialed in, and they did. What were your thoughts of their play last year? What stood out? Who stood out? Just your general thoughts.
Yeah, when Johnny Wilson walked on campus, when I saw him at practice the first time, I thought, "Oh, this guy's built differently." He just is the guy, right? Like when I did my season preview, he was the first player I talked about because I thought, well, he's 6'7" and he runs like a wide receiver. He can go up and get the ball, and everybody saw flashes of that greatness this past season. So like when he's catching the ball consistently, he's as good of a wide receiver as you're going to see anywhere.
I agree 100%. 100%.
When he gets easy passes over the middle and he drops them, it doesn't matter how good you are if you're dropping the ball. But really what he brought you was he was a guy that could win one-on-ones, right? So the defense wants to cheat people in the box, wants to really stuff the run. Well, last year people could do that. Jacksonville State could do that because you didn't have a wide receiver that could consistently win over the top against Jacksonville State. And they could stuff up the run, and it didn't matter what you did. This year, they couldn't do that, right? Even if Johnny Wilson wasn't going to catch everything, if he catch 50% of the balls going his way, that's 50% completion rate, 40 yards downfield. That's not good for the defense. So, Johnny Wilson is special. He's built differently. You need to see his catching come along this year. That's something that still kind of plagued him. That needs to improve, right? That's before I crown Ron Dugan's king of the wide receiver coaches. I need to see that improve. But Mycah Pittman's kind of the opposite story. He's a guy that super consistent, catches everything. That's why he's such a good punt returner. And he was your guy. Like, you need a third down conversion. He was a guy that you didn't have last year. So you had a chunk play guy and a third down conversion guy that you didn't have last year. And I think seeing them kind of both mature in those roles and get better at those roles specifically is an exciting prospect for the offense.
I agree. And with Johnny Wilson's thing too, obviously the occasional drop plagued him, but based on a lot of the stuff we saw at Arizona State, when combined with all of the really tough catches, and not just on deep balls, man, he made some really tough catches over the middle. I'm really pleasantly surprised with him. He can get better, but I actually expect him to drop the ball a little bit more this year than he actually did. And like you said, Kevin, Mycah Pittman, dependable, does the dirty stuff on a football field, like the blocks, all of the downfield stuff, converts to a running back almost as soon as he catches the ball. Just a football player, and they needed that. So we've got those two guys. Two known quantities, two very productive guys. Let's talk about the unknown quantity. Let's talk about Winston Wright, who you did say, Brendan, extremely productive wide receiver from West Virginia. He was the guy that was basically said, okay, of the transfer class, he's the best one. He didn't even get to play. Are you confident that he can get fully integrated into this offense? Do you think that there's a chance for him to be as good here as he was at West Virginia?
He's certainly the wild card of the group, and there is the chance, Trey. I know the FSU staff is optimistic, and there's a reason why they didn't go to the transfer portal to add a wide receiver when they thought Malik McClain was leaving. So think about it. If you thought that Malik McClain was leaving, and if you didn't think Winston Wright was going to get back to pre-injury form, then you probably would have needed one from a number standpoint. So they are banking on Winston Wright, showing that this spring, a year removed from the injury, that he is getting closer to being himself. He was able to practice more late in the season, still did not look like himself. He wasn't super explosive, and working through that injury is going to take some time, but there is the chance for it. I don't think there's anything that they've received like nerve damage wise or anything like that that's going to make him prevent him from being what he was before at West Virginia, for which, for like the audience to remember, he was what Kev talked about, Mycah Pittman being that third down specialist, that guy you could move around a little bit, but mostly in the slot, that was quick and could get open quickly. Like, that's what Winston Wright was at West Virginia. Did I say Western Michigan earlier? I meant West Virginia.
No, I think you're good. I think you hit the right directional. Yeah, you did good. Right state there.
W directional, West something. But Winston Wright did that at a really high level in that air raid offense without good quarterback play. So, like, if you're able to put him, if he's able to get back to even 90% of what he was beforehand with his athleticism, his twitchiness, his little water bug type of movement skills with Jordan Travis and the space that Mike Gravel can create as a play caller, he could be a lot of fun in this offense if he returns to the pre-injury form, which, again, I think there's definitely a chance. There's optimism that he can.
With all the stress that's going to be put on opposing defenses too, he may not need to be 100% of what he was at West Virginia because of all the space he's going to have to operate in. I remember looking at his highlight film with Kevin and Adam. Shout out to the big guy. His agility and quickness off the line and ability to get open in the slot and work over the middle, that's going to be a nightmare when you combine him with Jordan Travis, and you combine him with the running backs we talked about, when you combine him with the tight ends we're going to talk about in the next video. You see, it's crazy, man. So we know that. We know the top two. We know the dark horse, the wild card. Let's talk about that next group of people afterwards. Kevin, who's the next guy up to you? We saw flashes from a lot of guys last year. Kentron Poitier, Darian Williamson, some promising play from that next group of guys. Who do you think is going to take a really tangible step next year? Is it one of those two? Is it a guy I'm not even talking about yet? What do you think?
I think to me, the next guys up are probably Spann and Williamson. Yeah. And so I think these are getting mixed up.
Portier and Williamson are kind of similar build wise, and I'm imagining that's what Kev's getting.
Right. Yeah. I double mixed myself up. So
Not
I
a
think
problem.
those guys are both longer striders, right? They're both taller guys. They're guys who want to get the ball in their hands, whether that's through the screen game or kind of downfield. You saw that with Williamson in the Boston College game. He got a couple of screens that he was able to use his athleticism, break down field. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of injury concerns. Spann was not as consistent as you would like him to be. He's still learning the position like we talked about earlier. But I think those are the kind of two guys that you're looking to see. Hopefully they're looking to kind of take advantage of some matchups when people are focusing so much on, Jaheim Bell or Johnny Wilson or whoever, right? These are the guys that you can probably get matched up on a safety or a linebacker. And that's really just a mismatch that hopefully they can take advantage of.
Do you agree with that, Brendan? I know that
He's a big Williamson fan.
Williamson
I
guy.
am a
Like, are you
big
disappointed in Kevin that he didn't just immediately say Williamson right off the rip?
No, I think you can make a convincing argument for 4 different guys to jump into that wide receiver 3 role if it's not Winston, right? And you do need a speedster, someone's going to be able to take the top off of defense to replace Ontario Wilson because he did that at a high level.
Yep.
If Kevin likes Tron, I understand if he likes to Spann and sees the upside there. Like there are people on his former coaching or former staff at Illinois who thought he was an NFL level talent, and you get little glimpses of it. But Darian Williamson in practice, holy crap, is he does something daily. When he's able to practice consistently, it's his daily like freak show moment that he's able to make. And and he does it in so many different ways too, whether it's contorting his body and like bending to make a catch in the air or like getting down and diving for a ball, yards after the catch we got to see in Boston College, like Kev said, like there is a ton he can do. He's just been hurt every single year he's been here. And eventually you have to be healthy. Like the number one ability is availability, right? Like that is.
That's one of my favorite cliches. Very nice.
Chew bubble gum and tight ends. And then we forget about Ja'Kai Douglas. Like,
oh, I did forget about him. And the slot fade king. That's fantastic. I did forget about him.
His injury in the preseason, the shoulder injury that he had, was super underrated because he, one, had a great spring, but then two, they were so intrigued by what he could do from a skills, like versatility standpoint. Remember, this is a former high school quarterback. He's played running back. He's played wide receiver. Obviously, there's a ton that they wanted to do with him, and that injury kind of took that away to where, like, you saw glimpses at the end of the year. He's really good in space. It has a knack for getting open. When he has 4 catches, 63 yards against Georgia Tech, I'm pulling.
He's smooth, man. He does. He's smooth when he needs to be. That's a great pull that you mentioned, Ja'Kai.
So and Jay Trev and him have good chemistry too, and I think that's worth noting. So like you've got an eclectic body type among these 4 wide receivers stepping up to be that wide receiver 3. Actually, 5 if we're counting Winston Wright. You have different skill sets, so like it's going to be a ton of fun to see who emerges as the guy that the coaching staff feels confident in becoming, like, the game plan type of player.
And the reason they've built the room to look like this is purposeful.
Okay.
You might not see the same wide receiver 3 one game as you see the next game, depending on the matchup.
That is a great point. And we actually saw that in practice this year. If you guys remember at the beginning of the year, each receiver was like taking turns of like being the guy. Imagine doing that this year with like the tight end. Mike Norvell's got so many different like weapons to play with based on opponent, based on like how the team is operating health wise. What an absolute nightmare to prepare for from a defensive coordinator standpoint. Am I right, guys?
It reminds me a lot of the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about them in these videos yet. It is very similar.
So from a versatility standpoint, I think there is something to that. But from a wide receiver, we're talking about the wide receiver room and the way you're building that out. Kyle Shanahan, at least at San Francisco, has kind of gone with a lot of similar body types who are interchangeable and can put different players in different spots of the field. Did you like that, Kev, the 49er throwback?
Yeah, that was beautiful.
He had to mute himself.
Garnet
Yeah.
Our golden red, you know.
So he had different skill sets, but similar body types to be interchangeable. There'll be some of that at FSU. But the way FSU is building its wide receiver room is kind of like how you build an NBA roster, where you have slightly different positions and sizes and body types to mix and match. It's different strokes for different folks, like what you want to do and what you think as a position, a general manager, a position builder, a roster builder. But Mike Gravel has created this just super malleable, versatile group of wide receivers that you will be able to mix and match week to week. And I think that's a ton of fun. And the options that we're talking about here, we're only scratching the surface of what they'll be able to do next season if all those guys hit like we think they can.
It's deep, it's talented, it's diverse. Any chance for any of the newcomers, any of the true freshmen to get into the mix? I mean, we got a 5-star coming in, boys, right?
We haven't talked about a 5-star Hykeem Williams yet. Hykeem Williams is really special athletically. I think he's a little bit raw, but he's coming in this spring. He's already here. He works extremely hard. He's very mature. So he's going to have a chance, right? He's going to hit Chris Nees a proverbial check all those boxes like you want from a wide receiver. Size, athleticism, he's got the personality traits that you want too, confidence. It's going to be about cleaning it up and whether he can learn a college playbook in a short amount of time. But skill set wise, he's got it. I don't know if Kev likes any of the other wide receivers or wants to talk about Hykeem a little bit too, but they've got a good room and good young pieces. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think Hykeem, he does everything. So he's a guy that really can be a matchup hunter no matter how you slice it, right? He's a matchup nightmare against anybody. So those are really your elite wide receivers, and it's something that he's definitely slotted to become as a 5-star. But he has the luxury of getting to learn and develop behind some really talented guys. So that's exciting stuff.
And you guys have the luxury of coming back to the Noles 24/7 YouTube page for the last 2 videos of our series. Next, we're going to be talking about tight ends. After that, we're talking the big uglies, the offensive linemen guys. The wide receivers were really good last year. I think they're even for pretty much every position so far. Good last year. I expect better this year. And I don't think that's really a tough thing for me to declare. Do we agree?
Yes. Do
we concur?
You got to find the Pokey Wilson replacement, right? But if you do, and I think they will, they have options, I concur.
We concur. Hopefully you concur to watch our next video. For Brendan, for Kevin, I'm Trey. Keep chopping. See you for tight ends.